Here we go. I didn't actually know that I was going to do a review on this paddle, but the more I played with it, the more I understood it. And I think that's going to be the experience that most people have when they try it. And there's also going to be a lot of people who are confused and feel like they were misled about the paddle. If you're expecting this paddle to hit like a JOOLA 3S, Rhombus Ripple, or 11624 Vapor, then this video might not be for you, because that's just not what this paddle is, because they aren't the same paddle. However, if you're expecting this paddle to play consistent, not core crush, do what you expect, and have controllable pop and power, then keep watching. Carbon made one of the best decisions any of the paddle brands as of late could have made. They held back on power. Let me tell you more about it. I'll also say the most important thing about this paddle isn't even the way it plays or performs. It's not about the consistency. And when it comes to quality and innovation and all these great things, I can't help but be reminded of my sponsor. Sponsor of today's video is Vuori. Vuori is a brand that focuses on athletic apparel and lifestyle clothing. Some of the more popular items is the core shorts, the Sunday performance joggers, and the Strato tech tee. Personally, I like the Ponto t-shirt, Ponto crew neck. Actually, really like anything in that Ponto line. The Ponto line uses that dream knit fabric. It's super, super soft. Great for when you're like lounging at home. It's a great alternative to sweats because you can be super comfortable in it, and it still has those moisture wicking properties. If you want to give them a try, go to vuori.com/buildingpickleball and you get 20% off your first order, and you also get free shipping on any orders of $75 or more. And if you order something and you try it out and maybe the color or the sizing wasn't what you expected, they also do free returns. Enjoy the rest of the video. It's about something even more important that's going to change our experience with the sport as a whole, and I'll get into that at the end of the video. In my opinion, this is going to be the new all-court standard. And as many of you know, I went to visit and film the team at Carbon last week, getting a behind-the-scenes look, filming a doc/vlog/movie, doing a podcast, and visiting their product developers' manufacturing facility. Okay, so let's get into it. This is one of the few paddles that I've tried lately that actually feels different. Most paddles remind me of like a Rubik's Cube. You can move all these different attributes around, but they still result in the same thing. This paddle is actually introducing new technology, much like when the Gen 3 was announced.
What we ask is that any content and pictures that contain any proprietary information stays confidential until noon on April 16th.
Not to mention, this thing's not gonna core crush. At least, that's what they say about it. So I've been using this paddle since last November when the guys at Carbon gave it to us at Worlds. Honestly, I can't go back to regular honeycomb paddles knowing that this technology exists and knowing what it is. It's like going from a smartphone to a flip phone. It's just really difficult to go backwards and go back to paddles that you know will delaminate or core crush. And you remember when certain brands were telling us that the core crushing was part of breaking in? That's interesting, considering the Trufoam doesn't require that at all. So, who's this paddle for? Honestly, who isn't it for? Everyone I know who has tried it has liked it. However, I will say many people were also very surprised by it. They were caught off guard. It just wasn't what they expected. I think they looked at this paddle and they thought, oh, it's gonna hit like a 3S. It's gonna be a power paddle just because it's associated with foam. And that's just not the case. They expected your typical Gen 3 power, and that's just not this paddle. Look, if you can generate power on your own, I think you're really gonna enjoy this paddle. It's gonna make you feel like the rest of your game is that much better, and then the power aspect is just gonna feel more controllable and predictable. It's not to say that this paddle doesn't have power, but it's not the most standout feature of the paddle. Again, this to me is going to be the new all-court standard. And if you're not a power player like me, you're going to enjoy the all-court feel. You're going to like how consistent things feel. And honestly, consistency is the most important aspect of the game because you can build a rhythm with your partner. You can get into points, build points, you can build momentum. What you don't want is to have no control over the game. Keyword, the game, not your game. The game that you're playing in, the match that you're playing in, where things can be very chaotic and random. You want the ability to build a rhythm and momentum with your partner. That's what wins games. It's a great paddle. The core technology is gonna be the future. It kind of already is. If you're expecting it to play like a 3S or a mod, it's just not that. But it's not because Carbon couldn't do that. They could have followed the trend that everyone else was doing. I won't be surprised if the 4S turns out to be a replica of the Trufoam. I've had people message me and say that they've tried it and that there's no pop, there's no power. Two things. One, if there's anything I learned, one session with a paddle is not enough. Two, you can't accurately judge a paddle without first customizing it, like adding weight to it. Look, I get it. The power is really, really exciting. And thanks to YouTube analytics, I know that most of the people watching this video is guys, and you get excited by hitting balls hard. Pause. But we've seen how this plays out. I saw a lot of people get excited about the gearbox, the JOOLA 3S, the Mod TA, the Rhombus Ripple, and then how many of these people have returned it or switched over to their old paddle or an all-court oriented paddle. Granted, there were some QC issues with those paddles too, of course. Unlike previous models, the thoughts and first impressions regarding this paddle were kept under wraps. I have a feeling a lot of people will assume that because it's an all-foam paddle that it'll play like a power paddle. It won't. Okay, and now we're gonna get to the point that I've been waiting to talk about since the beginning of the video, and that is durability. This is huge for the sport and the community. Just last year, people were complaining about the durability of paddles, having to switch paddles out every 6 months or so. This core changes the narrative. With the Trufoam core, the surface grit and spin becomes less relevant because the dwell time from the core is actually the larger contributor to the spin.
And I think, like Garrett said, like dwell time's the biggest thing on this. Like I think there's a lot of people who focus in on surface roughness or grit, and they think that's like the end all be all when it comes to hitting spin, basically. And dwell time is a huge component, if not arguably maybe more important.
Of course, we'll see what the spin tests say from the reviewers.
You know, as you can imagine, like this design has to get bigger or like wider at least for a Model 2, right? So then that's where you get that benefit of the sweet spot if it's getting even like wider out here for a 2 shape, stuff like that. So,
and then the 3 is just a longer face, so you have the benefit of a slightly larger sweet spot as well. A little bit more forgiving than this paddle.
And that about sums it up. I just want to make it short and sweet. I don't often review paddles. If you want to look at all the specs, I'm sure you can check it out on the website. I'm just going to give you my take. So what's next? I'm going to release the movie vlog documentary thing from my trip to California to visiting Carbon headquarters and their team. And then after that, I'll release the podcast. Thanks for watching. If you need the discount code, it's in the video description down below. And if you decide to use it, of course, thank you very much. That means a lot. It's super, super helpful for any content creator out there. And again, thanks for taking the time to watch another video of mine.